Mr. John Sheffield?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for being here today. We just want to give you a quick moment. Assemblywoman Kathy Knoll and I have the privilege of chairing the Education Committee, and together with Assemblywoman Deborah Glick, we help manage and chair these hearings. She chairs higher ed. We have a lot of colleagues here from the region, the 5th District region, and we also have a number of colleagues from throughout the state. Some have actually left and they will be coming back from meetings. We're also joined by Assemblyman Ed Ra, our ranking minority member on the Education Committee, and we work closely together in this endeavor. What we try to do, and the reason we have people wait outside, we like each candidate to come in fresh, so to speak, and you know, everyone comes in with fabulous resumes. We really appreciate the depth of experience people bring and the interest that they bring, but this is an opportunity in a somewhat informal, we realize we're live streaming for the first time, so it's a little less informal than it was. Right. But to have an informal conversation, you know, we don't swear our people in. We're not, you know, you are volunteering to serve in a volunteer capacity in a very historic job that has great authority. Our regions have an important constitutional and legislative role to play. But there's no right or wrong, there's no hot button, there's no litmus test, but we would appreciate your just sharing with us a little bit your vision or your own rationale why you would like to be a region, or something in your background that you feel is particularly relevant that you'd like to make a focus of your service as a region. I mean, any and all of those things, and it's hard, I know it's a brief presentation, but if you can just share with us a few minutes of your thoughts, and then we'll have some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just realized I left a small prop out in the hallway, but as an educator, I can get through it. No, and I'm very happy to be here, and I think before the proceedings start, if I can say Mr. McCutcheon has been a great deal of help. I told him out in the hallway he'd be a great middle school teacher. He's been very patient. I've asked a lot of questions, and he deserves some recognition for that.
Steve has been handling this for us. It's actually gone much more smoothly, and we appreciate it very much. For a while there, we had some years it was a little chaotic. It's gone very, very well. So thank you for recognizing that. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Sheffield, and it really is an honor to be allowed to address you and a privilege to be a voice for the children and parents of this state. Before we go any further, you did say it was kind of a casual setting. I've kind of split my opening statement up into two because I would like to do something at the close, if that's acceptable. Okay, thank you. You'll have to excuse me if I seem a bit nervous, because I am fully aware that the next 20 minutes are some of the most important that I probably will ever have, and I'm 52. I told people yesterday I was wedding vow nervous. So about a month ago today, I was approached to pursue a position on the Board of Regents. And I am here as a result of the tremendous support and encouragement from a great many people from all walks of life, many of whom I was not even aware they were paying attention to my writings, my videos. So it was a humbling experience. So here I am, hoping to see if you'll see fit to allow me the privilege of being a regent, either for the 5th Judicial District or even a regent at large. I want to make that clear. So who am I? I am a father of 2 children that were well served by the public education system, as was I many years ago. I'm an educator. I've been called an education activist. I am an active member of my community, and I am one very concerned citizen of what I consider to be a great state. I am concerned about the direction that education has been being driven, and not just on the state level. I want to recognize that the Fed Ed has been pushing and at times threatening our state, and that bothers me a great deal. But I'm also deeply, deeply troubled by the daily erosion of local control of public education, which I feel is being outright taken from our communities across the state. But as this is a public hearing, I'd like to share some of my background for the record so the people watching will know a little bit about me. I have an education degree in N through 6 primary education and grades 7 through 9 mathematics. I have a master's degree in effective education and an associate's degree in business administration as well. I have worked in settings that range from daycare with infants to adult education programs with 60-year-olds. I was a probation officer in the juvenile division of Oswego County, and in that capacity, I was heavily involved in the family court system. I have taught incarcerated teens as a teacher for New York State Division for Youth. I have worked special education training programs as an employee of my county's BOCES, and also worked with my local YMCA's respite program. I have taught in academic intervention settings for 2 decades with grades 6 through 8. I've taught 7th grade math in the standard classroom setting, and I am currently co-teaching math to special education students in grades 6, 7, and 8, as well as providing math intervention services to 7th and 8th graders. I feel that diversity of experience is on par with and possibly greater than many of the candidates you may be hearing from today. However, like all educators, I have seen our children soar. I have witnessed great imagination and creativity, tremendous fortitude, heartwarming compassion and generosity, and incredible intelligence in our children on a daily basis. On the flip side of that, due to some of my other experiences, over the course of my professional life, I have been exposed to numerous home environments that were far than ideal for children to thrive in. I've had to make some hard decisions to recommend that judges remove children from adverse settings that sometimes included their own homes for their own health and well-being. I've had to write reports to determine custody. I've seen firsthand, both personally and professionally, the travesty of abject poverty and the problems that accompany it. In Oswego County, we're one of the top 2 counties in the state for unemployment right now, and that is not a position you want to be number 1 or number 2 in. I have had to call the hotline for kids that have been physically and sexually abused. I have taught kids that have had their friends literally shot right in front of them. I have worked with children from gang areas from Rochester to New York City, and juvenile offenders from rural areas such as those found throughout Oswego County and the North Country of our state. In short, I've been exposed to and have experience with a variety of scenarios regarding our children that many people will ever have to deal with, and quite honestly, I hope they never will. My philosophy in my public school teaching career has always been pretty simple and clear. I've never felt I worked for the district. I have always worked for the parents and children. They're who I serve, and they're who I always will serve. My Board of Regents agenda would be encompassed by one simple question as well. Is this what is best for the kids? I am beholden to no group except the children of New York and what's best for them. That's the end of my opening statement. If you have any questions, I'm answer them as best I can.
Ms. Russell and then Mr. Graff.
Sure. You really bring an interesting background and approach to this, and I'm wondering if you have suggestions on where we could kind of plug some holes in the system, and whether or not you think the school setting is where we can try to address the issues of poverty, violence, drug use and abuse in our communities. How would you think that as a member of the Board of Regents we could craft policies and programs and help solve this through the educational process, I guess?
Well, I think education is the key, as it is to so many things in life, especially in any, and especially situations that have poverty, and whether that's inner city poverty or rural poverty. Poverty is poverty, and it brings its own set of dynamics with it. There are plenty of good programs out there across the state. We hear them, they surface, and people try to emulate them. But the bottom line is, when we have other mandates that are demanded from us, and those mandates that are required go unfunded or underfunded, and then you get into the gap elimination, which has taken money away from schools, as well as the campaign for fiscal equity lawsuit that was a couple years ago that determined New York State owed its public schools literally now billions of dollars. In order to have these programs, we have to have funding to do them. So that would be one of the first things, find funding wherever we can to maybe get the programs that work and start spreading them throughout the state wherever we can.
And does the school that you work in, do you know if they have pre-K?
We are working on pre-K to the best of my knowledge. My district is pretty spread out, being in Central Square. We have a pre-K program, but I don't think it's quite as wide as it should be. I'm just starting to learn a little bit more about that particular program.
Okay.
But I believe, if you can get to the youth, we always try to get parents to read at home. The younger children have people read to them even. Their reading scores, it shows over time. there's a carryover effect from that. So part of answering the education program, I think we need to educate our parents in the communities as well. For those that can't always have pre-K or can't afford pre-K, we need to have some sort of parent outreach.
How extensive are your extracurricular programs at the school?
We have a very solid music program. We have some good sports programs. It's difficult now because, we try to provide as much as we can for both sexes as law determines. So athletically, I think in my area we're okay, but I look at Oswego School District itself, where I live and reside. We used to have a great many more programs that kids could look into, whether we had an engineering program or music programs, or we had more advanced placement programs. And when I first came to Oswego back in the 80s, they probably numbered in the 40s anyway. And here I look now, and there's just a handful that are left. My wife, as a matter of fact, runs a journalism program, and they go to Columbia every year, and some kids have gone on and used that on their college resumes. That's another program that's a little bit extracurricular on the academic side that's in danger of being cut. And it's not something we should be cutting. We need to be investing more in these programs because our kids are so diverse, their strengths are so diverse. We can't continue to narrow and narrow and narrow the scope of what we offer them, because by narrowing that scope, we're limiting their potential.
You live close to, well, you're in the snow belt, depending on, which way the wind is blowing. I hear it's blowing today somewhere pretty hard. But I live in a rural area, and oftentimes the parents' ability to transport children often determines whether or not they can have access to what few extracurricular programs are out there. And I didn't know if that is your experience. From the North Country, we would say that Central Square is, a suburb, more densely populated than we are. And I didn't know if that was also a barrier for your community that you live in.
Central Square has an interesting dynamic because they're within an hour of so many higher education facilities. Lemoyne, Syracuse University, SUNY Oswego. We have the Cuba Community College right in Oswego now, and OCC. It's an enigma that 20 minutes away from Syracuse, which is considered a pretty dynamic economically speaking, that we have so much rural poverty. But we do have transportation problems, particularly to get to the parent nights and that sort of thing. As far as the extracurriculars where the band and the academics are concerned, the after-school activities, we try to have the after-school buses. If a child needs after-school help, there's an after-school bus, but then there's a late bus for the sports kids. But where we do run into problems, I believe some of them is the transportation on weekends to possibly get them to the site where the bus is leaving from. But the big problem for us is when we have these open house nights, the district is so widespread, as well as the poverty, it's difficult to get those people in, which leads me again to saying we need to be able to do more to reach out. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Thank you. Mr. Graff, followed by Mr. Magnarelli.
Hi, how are you? You're talking about the children that are in poor districts, and one of the things I see, and you're in the classroom, one of the things I see is that the curriculum, can you guys hear me on this? One of the things is that the curriculum is really based on parents being involved, okay? And what's happening is, if you have a parent who's working 3 jobs to keep the lights on, to keep the food on the table and the roof over their head, okay? In your experience, right, when we're basing the curriculum to force the parents to be involved, those children, what's happening to them?
Well, part of the problem, regardless of whether they're poor or not, and thankfully Central Square, we do have some affluent areas and there's support at home. We do have some very higher level students. But the problem is, even the educated parents are having a lot of difficulty in assisting their children with the current curriculum. And a case in point, I have a friend of mine who graduated with a math degree from SUNY Oswego, and he works for a computer company. And he has difficulty, and he's one very intelligent man, he really is. He has difficulty helping his daughter with 9th grade math, the way the curriculum has been set up to be run. And one of my things about the curriculum is, I think when you talk reform, people automatically think reform means it's going to be better. Well, if you look at the definition of reform, reform does not mean you're changing something for the better. Reform means you're changing it. And I think that the reform we're currently under with the curriculum certainly has had some catastrophic results. Parents feel they're being removed from the educational system right now at a time when we need them more involved in the educational system. We need their support because the world is a-changing and these kids are getting lost. So regardless of whether it's a poor student from a lower economic standing or even the higher students with educated parents, the curriculum right now is removing a lot of parents because my feeling is, and I say this as a math guy with a lot of experience in other settings, we've made things more complicated, but some of the people behind the curriculum have claimed that we're going deeper. Well, making something more complicated isn't making it deeper. What it is you're making it more complicated. There's a difference between making something complex and teaching something with depth. And I think that's where we're going to lose a generation of students because we're teaching them all these different things, but they're still not going to have an understanding, and I say this from a math perspective, of a lot of the basic foundational things in mathematics. And we need to get these parents back involved, and some changes need to be made in this curriculum. It's almost, New York used to be a leader in education. And I'm kind of an educational historian. If you go back to the year 2000, that was when the federal government really started to step in and they did No Child Left Behind. And everybody had to react to No Child Left Behind. So that's when the real testing onus really began. And then we got into the race to the top and the Common Core and that sort of thing. And that did not make things any better. It made it worse. And all I've seen happen with the involvement from the level above us to New York State is we no longer, I don't think, can claim we're number one. And I think we need to, as a state, get back to saying, look, we own this is our state, and we will be number one again. But we need to maybe go a little bit backwards to go forward. And the other thing is there's certain parts of the curriculum that quite honestly are inappropriate. They're just not age level appropriate at all. When you have a child in 4th grade taking a test that's a reading level 2 and 3 years above, how is that an accurate measure of what that child's ability is?
Thank you very much. Mr. Magnarelli to close. Oh,
No, we got Mr. Brindisi.
Mr. Magnarelli, followed by Mr. Brindisi to close.
Maybe. We've got a question we've been popping back and forth on, and we've been asking basically the same question of a lot of the applicants here today. But it's a two-part question. First of all, I'm a little bit confused here. You're going to be a full-time math teacher and be a regent. I just want to be clear.
Yes.
Okay. The second, not that you can't be, I'm just saying.
Can I address that?
I'm just saying, well, address it with the rest of the question. It's a big judicial district.
Yes.
There are 6 counties, many, many miles of roads to travel. How do you plan on doing that? And at the same time, be a full-time math teacher.
Okay. It's interesting you bring up the judicial district. In 2012, I don't know how many of you are, well, you probably are, but familiar with the Syracuse program Bridge Street. In 2012, I was put on there for a teacher appreciation week, and a parent had written a nice letter about me, so they ended the week with me. And I was asked by Chris Bandolino, who was the host of the show, what I felt was wrong with education. And he said, is it the bullying? Is it getting the kids to do the homework? And what I said to him back then was, I said, I think that some of the people making the decisions are too far away from where things happen. And in that, I looked it up the other day, and I can't believe I said it because I'm sitting here. It's kind of ironic. I actually said that in over 20 years of teaching in the area, I had yet to even be in the same room with a member of the Board of Regents. So communication for me is extremely big. Part of the reason I'm here is because I've shown my ability to listen to others, whether it's phone calls, emails. Social media is incredibly huge. I have connections. My wife is from Oneida County. I have made Oswego County my home. My son attends school up in Potsdam. I'm very familiar with the North Country area. I also grew up in an area similar to that in Dryden, New York. But between social media, emails, and it's not that far to travel. It is a big area, but I certainly think communication has always been one of my strong points and has always been acknowledged in my district. So using the social media that we currently have, I mean, the reason I'm here is because people literally from, again, I can say this in all honesty, from the North Country to Buffalo to New York City and all points in between have all been very supportive of this endeavor and approached me to do it. So I'm not too concerned about the communication problem, but I do think that it would not hurt for any of the regents to maybe at least once a month set up a weekend to go to a local fire hall somewhere in their region. Maybe have a pancake breakfast or something, because we need to communicate with these people. We need to be honest with them. They need to feel that we are representing them, and the only way to do that is with communication.
Apparently, Mr. Brindisi's question was asked.
I was kind of hoping Mr. Magnarelli would ask me something about Laker hockey, maybe, but you know.
So thank you very, very much for your participation and putting yourself forward. We'll be doing interviews over the next couple of weeks.
I do have that closing statement I mentioned earlier,
Fine.
if that's possible.
Please do that, and then we will close this out.
Takes about 2 minutes. For the sake of all our children, this generation and those to come, I really feel we must come together to stop what I consider to be a scorched earth policy of testing mania, corporate interference as opposed to assistance, at times inappropriate curriculum, false claims made about the curriculum, and really the misuse and abuse of data that is laying waste to an entire generation of children. I remember when Race to the Top and Common Core arrived in New York State, and there was a video circulated about how great it would be. And I don't know if any of you remember that video, but it compared what was being done to education as to how exciting it would be to build an airplane in flight. And I don't know if any of you remember that video. I see a couple of people shaking their head. Now, I would never get on an airplane in real life if it was not completely built. But collectively, our children were put on this conceptual and incomplete airplane, and now they are paying the price for it. So it seems ironically appropriate that I close with an airplane analogy. Now, say this piece of paper represents one of our children. This really is a tabula rasa going way back to my education days. It is full of unlimited potential in what it can be used for and what it can convey. I could hand all of you a piece of paper, and while it might look like this one, no two airplanes we make will be exactly alike. They will not fly the same. Some will do loops. Some will veer off in directions we don't want. But if our target is that wall, eventually with enough encouragement, our plane will make it to that wall regardless of the pace they're flying at. So we can accommodate that and recognize there are differences in our children. Or we can continue to do what we're just doing to them right now. And while this balled up piece of paper will fly faster and straighter and reach that wall faster than almost any other plane we would make, in this now what we've done, we have lost so much potential of what could be. Sorry. Some would say I have mutilated this beyond repair. And make no mistake, I want all our kids to fly, and I want all our kids to succeed. And the schools are not to make kids succeed in school. It is to make them succeed in life. But I know, as does every one of you in this room and the people behind me, there are many paths to success. And all the planes do not have the same flight path. We should not be so willing to continue to wad up our children into unrecognizable entities, possibly crushing the spirits while we do so, to satisfy the agenda of a few. Thank you. Sorry, I get a little
No,
emotional.
I must say, in a colorful way of presenting your point, I can see you were a master teacher there, because we were all riveted. We were unsure if you were going to throw it at us or at the wall. But thank you very much, thank you. That's a good teacher.
I don't know any of you well enough to throw the
No,
paper.
but that's a good teacher when you got the audience riveted. Thank you very much, thank you.
Well, it just speaks to the alternate pathways we need for education. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. It's a privilege to be here.